This is how I increased my vertical jump by 2.5% in just 6 sessions in 3 weeks. So I'm going to throw up the before and after chart now, just so you can see it at the beginning of the video. It's a small change, it's a trend in the right direction. It's not a significant change, but it's a short time frame, only 6 sessions, and you can see in jump height from peak and average. So average is average of 3 jumps, and then you can see in peak the change in jump height. So what did I do to do this, and what does that mean for your combat training, and is this applicable to you in any way? I'm going to take you through exactly what I did and what this actually means for your strength and conditioning. Now, I did this case study more of an interest to myself as well, using the Flywheel device, this one from Eccentric. I'm going to have footage rolling over this video of all my sessions. It was only 6 sessions throughout 3 weeks, and I'll have that video rolling so you can see what I was doing. But essentially, it was a day 1 that was supposed to be more speed-based. Day 2 was supposed to be more strength-based. Now, initially I picked loads that I thought would have a large contrast. So I had 0.1, which was 1 red disc on the first day, and 0.2 of the units of inertia on day 2, and that was 2 red discs. And also that would be enough to have a large enough contrast in velocity when I was performing the movements. Unfortunately, when I went back and looked at the data, they're actually pretty similar, even though it was pretty much double the inertial load. So we're looking at like 0.5 to 0.6 meters per second for the 2 red discs, and then we're looking at like 0.6 to 0.7-ish for the 1 red disc. And we'll dive into some of those limitations at the end of the case study. But essentially what I did, day 1 was just 3 sets of 5 squats, and these were hand supported, and that was with the 1 red disc. Day 2 was also 3 sets of 5 with the squat, just to keep it very simple, but that was with 2 red discs. And then just to add some posterior work in there, I also did 3 sets of 6 with the Romanian deadlift. I didn't do that to try and improve vertical jump, it was just some balance in there. So I wasn't just doing squats. I didn't do any other leg work for 3 weeks. No jumping, no running, nothing, literally nothing. I didn't even do that much jiu-jitsu just because I was out with a bit of a skin thing. So it was purely just the Eccentric squats and the RDL, nothing else for legs. I wanted to see exactly how the Flywheel training device could influence this vertical jump. Now, why vertical jump? Vertical jump tends to be a proxy for lower body power. How it relates to sporting actions, typically you want more lower body power because 1, hard punches come from force generating from the floor, from the legs. Obviously when we're wrestling, shooting shots, it all comes from the legs as well. We need that ability to produce that force quickly. So the vertical jump is just a very easy field test for someone to gauge general lower body power. It's not a scientific method of measuring power, as there are better variables that you can measure from a jump, but something that's easy enough, jump height doesn't. I did that through the My Jump Lab app, and that app lets you measure jump height through flight time. So you're basically picking when you're leaving the ground, picking when you hit the ground again, and then it gives you your jump height. So if I take you through this graph that Alex did Eccentric for me from my data, we can see that the squats up the top, the RDL's the bottom, but the top ones, concentric velocity and eccentric velocity. So you can see by the 3rd week, I'd really gotten into the groove of how the Flywheel feels. And I could feel that on the 3rd week too, noticeably. It was a noticeable difference between how easy I could accelerate the Flywheel and how easy I could essentially brake on the way down. So I was able to handle eccentric loads much easier, and you can see a slight trend going up in the eccentric velocity. I was able to brake it slightly faster on the lighter loads, and then obviously the concentric velocity goes way up as well, which means that there's fast eccentric loads coming back down, and I was able to put the brakes on that too. To illustrate the importance of being able to brake hard and fast, it's actually a brand new paper that was published last month, I think it was, and they looked at the influence of eccentric velocity, so how fast you go down, on concentric performance during a counter movement jump. So essentially how high you can jump. So typically what we just did with the case study really, but they did it in a more scientific fashion, doing some other things. So I'm gonna quickly run through this with you just to show you the findings of this, kind of where I'm coming from and to why disability is so important. So they took 13 well-trained young men. They had put them into, I think it was 3 different groups. An eccentric tempo group, which was 5 seconds down. No, sorry, 4 groups, 5 seconds down. There's a 2-second down group. There was a as fast as possible group, and there was an accelerated group. And the accelerated group essentially didn't pause between the reps. So if you think about just jumping as high as you can, then waiting, then jumping as high as you can versus just jump, jump, jump. And they use varying loads. They use 30% 1RM, 50% 1RM, and 70% of 1RM, and that'll be 1RM of your back squat. And they basically compared the groups in terms of force, power, jump height, etc. And they found that the group that had the fast and the accelerated condition, so those two, They had higher concentric force at 100 milliseconds, so being able to produce high amounts of force in very short time frames and faster peak velocities compared to the 5 second down and 2 second down group. Essentially, these groups were able to rapidly turn the last portion of the eccentric into the concentric very, very quickly. The only way to do that is to be able to rapidly brake during the eccentric. That is one of the benefits of using the flywheel. It trains you in that way to be able to brake quickly and quickly move that inertial load back to the concentric. So that's a positive change in just essentially 3 sessions at that load. You could call that 5 sessions total. That would be the 5th session if you count the heavier loads in that. RDL kind of stays relatively the same. Eccentric velocity does trend up slightly by the last session as well, being able to brake harder and faster through the posterior, which is also a nice adaptation to have. Now, 2.5% increase doesn't sound like much, but in just 3 weeks in these sessions, it's pretty impressive. Do I think that I could have got the same potential benefits or improvements in jump height just from, say, traditional strength training if I was just doing, say, 1 day of light squats, 1 day of heavy squats? I don't know, potentially I could. It may have just been a matter of improving strength, just on those lifts. Could do that. Again, that's just one of the limitations of a case study like this. Obviously, it's just me doing it. It's just one person. Another limitation of this. For future case studies, I need more polarization within the speeds that I choose from the inertial load. So the 1 red disc and the 2 red discs didn't have a far enough gap between the velocities. So velocity was kind of the same for both loads. I'd prefer to have one that's a lot faster, that's maybe closer to 1 meter per second, and then one that's a little slower, that's maybe closer to 0.5. That way we can get a little more polarization in that training, and I think that would probably transfer better into improving vertical jump in this instance. And further, they tend to see, at least with flywheels, it takes around 6 weeks to see real significant change in vertical jump. I keep this 1 to 3 weeks to keep it very short. There are some other case studies that I'm a little more interested in doing as well. Next, I want to kind of look at the eccentric motor. So overloading that eccentric, doing some partial range stuff in addition or with traditional plyometrics jumps, etc. And I want to see changes in reactive strength index. I can also do vertical jump with that, even repeated jumps, just to get a broad spectrum of changes from using some of these things. I think that would be quite interesting and interesting for you as a watcher in the audience as well, just to see how that incorporation of that flywheel device improves some of these metrics. Why do I think the flywheel device is rather effective in doing this? There's a few things that the flywheel gives that traditional strength training doesn't. I've covered this in a previous video as well. If you find that on the channel, I think if you just search flywheel, you might be able to find that. But essentially you're having no dead spots on the way down. So this flywheel is pulling you down and you have to put the brakes on really hard. Even though the load coming back from the eccentric is the same as the concentric, it's pulling you down the entire time, making it a much higher eccentric load, in my opinion, a much higher eccentric speed. Further, since all the reps during the concentric are maximal, it means the eccentric is maximal. So it's almost like doing the last rep of a hard set of squats over and over and over again, and you'll feel it too. And I actually cover some of the important points. If you go down in the description, the MMA strength conditioning blueprint, it's there, it's brand new, it's free. All you have to do is sign up with your email. That's all I'm asking for. It's just your email. So I can give you this, it's essentially a 40-page mini ebook that covers all the strength and conditioning for MMA in there. So you can take that as well. But the other thing I really like about the flywheel for combat sports training, it doesn't make you sore like traditional strength training does. Even if you go on as a novel stimulus, so typically brand new exercises, new devices, etc., will make you very sore the following day. Flywheel training doesn't seem to do that, and I've seen that across the board anecdotally from many different people that have used it, and that is even when you're doing an eccentric overload. And if you do an eccentric overload with traditional strength training, for example, a barbell on your back for back squats, and you're loading, say, 110% 1RM, you will be sore the following day. With flywheels, you just don't seem to get that. And if you've got a hectic training schedule for MMA, jiu-jitsu, whatever it is, you don't want to have crippling soreness from strength training. And that is where the advantage of this really is. If you like this video, please make sure to subscribe to the channel. Helps out a lot. Share it with anyone. Comment below if you have any questions on this. Let me know in the comments. More than happy to answer them, create videos on them, all of that. And I'll see you in the next video.